Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I see some faces, and a lot of you are hiding, which I totally understand. I showered today, so I'm showing my face. Um, anyway, thank you for coming to this session. It is really near and dear to my heart because JT, who is joining us as our special speaker, has given all the turnover in hospitality that's always been there, even pre-COVID. She has been instrumental in coaching me um, for my whole career in the last 10 years to always be landing on my feet. And I cannot say enough about her advice in terms of everything from a simple email response that I need to make, or salary negotiations, or what I should be doing on LinkedIn, or how I should target certain companies when I'm looking to do something new in hospitality technology. So she's helped me personally. And when the board was talking about sharing some job tips, given all the upheaval in our industry, there's no one else who I would rather have join us. So that's my personal intro, but I also want to read you her very impressive bio so that everybody has some context into the tips that she's about to give. So JT O'Donnell has been in the development, HR, employment, and job search industry for 18 plus years. She founded a company called Work It Daily to disrupt the industry and bring career coaching and support to professionals of all professions and skill levels. She wanted to make access to professional growth affordable to everyone, not just the elite. Having written articles for LinkedIn, Inc. Magazine, Forbes, New York Times, CNBC, and Hearst, she's an authority in her space and one of the best in the business. She also shares job search and career growth tips on social media. And with more than 2.6 million followers on LinkedIn and nearly 1 million on TikTok, which who knew that was like a career channel, she's helping drop the geographic and economic boundaries to career coaching. So without further ado, I'm going to let JT take over.
Thanks, Jess. You always get a little bit of imposter syndrome when you hear somebody read your bio. It always feels a little weird, like, who is that person? It's great to be here, everyone. And so when Jess reached out to me, she said, can we talk a little bit about resumes and LinkedIn? And I said, absolutely, because this is an area that as a company, we focus heavily on to make sure that we're staying on top of trends. And as you can imagine, they're constantly changing, but particularly in the last year with everything that's happened with COVID and the economic crisis, we've seen a real shift in terms of what employers are looking for. And if there's one thing that I can leave you with today, if there's one thing I can kind of let sink in, it's that right now, less is more. Employers are looking for you to be very fact-based. They're looking for you to be objective. They're looking for emotional intelligence in the form of intellectual humility. So what I mean by that is that overhyping yourself or trying to, oversell yourself using a lot of subjective text is going to work against you for multiple reasons. Not only does it send the wrong message as a first impression, but it also works against you in the technology platforms, the ATS and on LinkedIn, which I will highlight for you today. So what I thought I would do is take you through, I'm going to go through it really quickly. We actually have very in-depth trainings on these, that each of these normally would be 30 minutes of video training and templates for each one, but we're going to condense this at a higher level so that we can expose you to both resume best practices and LinkedIn best practices so that you can get a sense of that. And so hopefully that will help as you're out there, potentially looking for new opportunities and wanting to really stand out in a really large sea of talent, right? There's just so much competition right now. So I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to bring up my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see this. Let me just bring this presentation up. So we always start with your resume first. And there's a phrase that I use pretty regularly inside our Work It Daily platform, which is brand or be branded. So when you are creating tools like your resume or LinkedIn, you want to be really intentional and selective about the brand because you want to control the messaging. And I've seen probably the most classic mistake people make is that they think the resume is where they should put everything they've ever done in their entire life, including the kitchen sink. And that is probably one of the biggest reasons why people get held back and don't get job interviews, which is shocking to people. Especially because recruiters might tell you, Well, you should put as much information on there as possible so that when we look at it, we can really assess who you are. That's actually not true. Recruiters are skimmers. They look at your resume for 6 seconds, 6 to 13 seconds, depending on which survey study you look at. And then based on what they skim through, they may or may not decide to go back. So when you are putting all of this excessive information in your resume, you're actually visually hurting your chances of being considered for the position. You're giving them more reasons to screen you out than to screen you in. So with that in mind, I want to take you through some tips, and then I'm going to show you a bad resume and a good resume so that you can visually see it for my visual learners. I know I'm really visual. So first thing I want you to remember is that your resume is only going to showcase your hard skills and your experience. We're going to simplify this down. The next thing you need to know is that your resume should be tailored for every opportunity you apply to. But as you'll see today, I'm going to show you a technique where you're only adjusting the very top of the resume. Remember that 6 seconds? So that it's a lot easier to customize for each role. And then just remember that the resume, while it's really important to get it in good shape, it's not going to be the thing that ultimately gets you the job. And I only say that is because I've seen people hem and haw and waste a month of time trying to perfect a resume when they could be out looking for work. You just want to get this thing done and you want to move on. So first thing we're going to talk about is simplifying that formatting. One of the best things you can do is leverage white space or empty space. If I was to put a single word on this page right now and nothing else, everyone would read that in a split second and your thoughts would be completely dialed into that word, the definition of that word, how that word relates to you. So you would make a connection. As I add more words, there's more for you to consume. The focus of what's going through your brain and the connection starts to diminish. So this is what I mean about too much text in your resume. We also want to think about the formatting in terms of clean line fonts. A lot of times people want to make their resume look more executive or jazzy. And so they use these scripty type fonts, but that actually studies show it's harder to read and absorb. And it's one of the classic cases where they'll discriminate against you for your age, because those fonts tend to be seen as old school fonts. You also want to really avoid things like excessive bolding, italics, underline. People want to try to punch up their resume with all of these things, but all you're doing is creating a jerky eye movements so that they're really not able to focus properly because it's like shiny objects all over your resume. And then lastly, you want to remove dense paragraphs because quite simply, they won't be read. The next thing I want you to think about is your objectivity. You want to avoid being subjective. So this is very surprising for a lot of people because they'll be told, well, I want to know your soft skills. The problem with that is soft skills are like attention to detail, patience, time management. Soft skills are things that we can't quantify necessarily or measure. The only way we would know if you had those soft skills is if we experienced them, if we had a conversation with you to determine that. So recruiters are pretty leery of soft skills when they're all throughout a resume, because in their mind, they're thinking, well, you think that you have attention to detail, but I'm the person that needs to decide that. So they would, again, rather assess that after the fact, which means it's much better to focus on just your hard skills, the technical skills, the industry experience, the actual, project management, marketing, things that we can quantify and validate with numbers. And you'll see why that's so important in a second. And that's because we're tying those to keywords. So recruiters these days use keywords in both ATS, applicant tracking systems, and on LinkedIn in order to find candidates that are a match. So one of the things you can do these days is look at a job description. Let's say it was a job that you were interested in. You could go over and use a free word cloud tool on the internet and take all of that job description text and pop it in a word cloud. What you would get is this cloud of words, but some words would be much larger than others. Those are words that were used repeatedly throughout the job description. And this is a really wonderful way for you to see what are the things they keep saying repeatedly in this job description, which would tell me those are emphasized skills and things they're looking for. So this is one way for you to figure out the kinds of things that you want to make sure are repeatedly in your resume, because the applicant tracking systems are designed to weed out, embrace yourself, 97% of resumes. 97% of the people that apply online. So for every 100 resumes that apply, Only 3 make it through to the human eye. And that might vary up and down a little bit, but people don't understand, while we think we made job search easier by creating these online places to apply, it's not in our favor. It's in the favor of the employer, because the employer now says, well, okay, of the 100 that applied, only give me the 3 that have these key skill sets and these amount of them. So those algorithms are now working to assess your resume and decide if you make it through. And there's no gaming the system. Please know, if there's any company out there claiming they can do your resume and make it ATS friendly, it's not true, because there are literally probably 50 plus ATS systems out there. Every company uses a different one, and the way it processes is different. So they can't just optimize your resume to get through the ATS. It does not work. It is far more important to build a resume that has the keywords in it, but it is formatted for the human eye. That's because ultimately what you're going to want to do, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is use the resume to get it in front of someone. But in this case, you're going to figure out your key skill sets, and you're going to build a keyword specific headline followed by more key skill sets, and then those relevant skills and software. And again, I'm going to show you those examples in a minute, so that in 6 seconds, they can look at it and go, oh, look, Jess has all the skills I'm looking for. Check, 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 check. Let me keep reading her resume. So the next step is quantifying your work history. And this is a subject for debate. I see a lot of resumes where people write these very long paragraphs describing the job and describing how they did it. And that does not get read, because recruiters don't care how you did it. They care what you got done, because they have to go and pitch you to somebody else. The way a recruiter's assessed on their own job skills and how well they're doing their job is how tight of a match they bring to the hiring manager. So you are going to focus on creating 3 to 7 bullet points. And what you want to try to do is have numbers in every single one. Numbers are the easiest thing to read on a resume, and they create a very instant sense of the depth of your expertise. And so you want to tie that. So for all of you in hospitality, we might talk about how many rooms are in a particular hotel, or how many people would come through the hotel on a given week or month, something like that. How many staff members are part of the hotel. These numbers help us get a sense of the size and depth of your experience. And as I said, they anchor the eye, and that helps the recruiter get excited about you as a candidate. And then the last piece is distributing it effectively. Like I said, 97% of people are tossed by the ATS. So while you may see a job that you really want at a company and you fill out the ATS, you shouldn't stop there. Your ultimate goal should be to get it directly in someone's hands. So you should be looking for email addresses. And I'll give you the name of an amazing website. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. It's called hunter.io. So hunter, HUNTER.io. And this is a place where you can go and put in a company and start to figure out the nomenclature for email addresses, so that you could try to find the hiring manager and email them your credentials as well. The other thing you want to remember is that unless specifically asked, your resume should always be in a PDF format, because sending it as a Word document is the kiss of death if they open it up in some kind of platform that doesn't sync. And I see that all the time. People open up their resume and it looks like junk because it's not formatted. But if it was a PDF, we would see that it was all tightly formatted. So always save it as a PDF. And as you've seen in this last piece, you should always be sending a cover letter. Now, we're not going to get into cover letters today, but I can definitely send some follow-up resources. A lot of people say to me, JT, aren't cover letters dead? Recruiters say they don't read them. Recruiters don't read bad cover letters. And I've recently said, I think we should probably do away with the term cover letter, because that's not what I'm really proposing here. My company coined it a disruptive cover letter as a way to help people understand that cover letters today need to be disruptive in what's written in them. But yesterday I was talking to a group and I said, you know what? I want you to think of this as your connection story. Every resume should be delivered to somebody via email or LinkedIn with a connection story. And that connection story is how you have come to learn that what that company does and who they are is valuable, important, better, different, whatever it is. Because all of us should be looking at an organization and not just applying for the sake of the job. We should have what's called intrinsic motivation, internal motivation to want to work for them. Every company wants an employee that has intrinsic motivation, because that means you're going to want to get up every day and figure it out and come to work because you're going to be self-motivated. That connection story is the way of introducing your intrinsic motivation to an organization. And it's what gets you to stand out hands down in the hiring process. Every single day inside our platform, people are messaging us saying, I just got a call from a recruiter and their connection story, my connection story was the best they've ever read. And what happens now is that recruiter hasn't even met you and they're rooting for you. They love the story so much that they're trying to screen you in, not screen you out. And it changes the whole dynamic of the relationship as you go through the hiring process. So if you're interested in more on that, we'll definitely get you some resources because it is a game changer. All right, so I think I've made the point. Simplifying your resume is going to help you land more job interviews. What we're going to do now is I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to bring up some examples. So let's see. This is going to be my first example. Hopefully everybody can see that there. So right out of the gate, we're using that curly-tailed font I talked about. So people will say, oh, but it looks so classy, JT. It does. It looks classy. But most recruiters these days tend to be in their 30s or younger. And to them, this screams old school. So literally there will be age discrimination if you use a font like this. The second problem we have here is there's all this underlining. So I see all this underlining, this centering of the text. So look what's happening. We know for a fact that the human eye works in a Z pattern, goes across, down, and over. So I'm seeing professional summary that tells me nothing about what Gary does. So in 6 seconds, I still don't know what Gary's specialty is. And then there's this paragraph that starts with a dynamic, dedicated, and highly motivated. I want you to imagine that your resume is the first thing this person is ever seeing. If you had to walk up to the hiring manager for your dream employer and you weren't allowed to introduce yourself, all you were allowed to do was read off your resume, how many of us would walk up to that person and say, hello, I'm a dynamic, dedicated, and highly motivated marketing person, right? We would feel so silly. And this is what I meant when I started this session about that intellectual humility, sticking to the facts and not hyping yourself. So right now, that recruiter's not going to read that paragraph. They're going to go down and catch really quickly this person has a degree, a bachelor's degree. And then you see that this person started underlining and bolding where they worked. So the problem with that, folks, is that if I'm assessing you for a job, I'm way more interested in what your job titles were and what you did for work as opposed to where you worked. So this should actually be flipped around. We should have account manager first, followed by market squared in this case. And it shouldn't be bolded and it shouldn't be underlined. Only the job title should be bolded. Recruiters like to look down the left and read your job titles. And then they like to look down the right and look at your job continuity in terms of dates. This is a standard practice. So when they don't see that, you're now frustrating them. You're making their job harder, and that's working against you. The other big mistake this person is making, we've got this whole italics explanation of what the company does. Recruiter doesn't care. If they want to know, they'll go look the company up. They've got Google. So this is wasted text here. And then there's a single bullet point, and it's 4 lines long and not a single number. So as far as anchoring the eye and being drawn in, nothing is holding me to this. I'm just seeing an abundance of text. So this resume, at a quick scan, I may be picking up that he's in marketing, but I'm not getting any immediate sense of how he creates impact for his organization. And so that's probably in my mind, a recruiter's going, well, I'll keep looking, either toss him or I'll come back to him. And then they won't come back because they'll find their other candidates. Now let's look at a good one. So we have got, where is it? If I can find it here. Is it this one? Oh, let's see if I can find a different one. Let me just stop sharing for a second. I think I have to look it up. We have a good one. This one here. Where is the next one? I have so many tabs open right now in order to do this for all of you. Let's see if I can find the right one. Try it one more time. Almost there, because I really want you to see this. Bear with me. Sorry, team, technical errors on my part. I'm usually better with this. Share with me here. There we go. Here we go. There's the one I want you to see. All right, worth the wait. I absolutely promise you, worth the wait. Here we go. There we go. So now we're going to see Gary in an updated format. Wonderful. I just wanted you to see a good one. So first of all, you're going to see that this is in a clean line font. Very easy to read, quick read. Now I know a lot of people go, oh, it looks so boring. You want boring. Think of your resume as the toast in an avocado toast. Your connection story can be the avocado. Your resume is the toast. You don't want to give them reasons to screen you out. So Gary's got his contact information at the top, and he's got a branded statement, digital marketing specialist. Now, depending on what job you apply to, you can adjust that. But this is a summary statement about your skill set. It's followed up with 2 columns of key skill sets. So remember when I said find those transferable skills? You should be able to find at least 8 transferable skill sets that you're always going to use in the type of work that you're going after. You could add up to 12 here. So you could put 6 in each column. Your column should be equal. Don't have a 5 in one and 4 in the other. So you can figure out even numbers. But these are key skill sets, hard skill sets. So as a recruiter, I open this up, and in 6 seconds, I've read digital marketing specialist, social media management, ad retargeting, email, Facebook, SEO. Ooh, okay. There's all the buzzwords that hiring manager told me to look for. Let me keep reading. The rest of his top fold, this is what we call here. We've got his degrees, because most of the time, if it's a job that requires a degree, we need to know that front and center. Any languages, we're becoming a very global world. So if you speak languages, technologies that are relevant to your job, certifications, and industries. This snapshot is what you adjust for each opportunity so that it matches as needed to the jobs you apply to. The rest of the resume gets to stay the same. And this is why it's so easy to adjust it in this format. But now as a recruiter, I'm already getting a very clear sense of what Gary does. Now I want to see where he did it and what he accomplished. And again, you can see this is where it differs. We see the job titles, so I can see very quickly the job titles, and we're emphasizing them. I see the dates of employment and the bullet points. Look at the numbers. As a recruiter, my eye is going into those numbers, and I'm saying, wow, there's some depth here. 300,000 email subscribers. Okay, so they've worked on big campaigns before, right? 1 million followers. Okay, so that's not an itty bitty assignment. This is truly somebody who's done some, heavy duty stuff in marketing. This is what's going to grab their attention, and it's what they can turn around and pitch to the hiring manager. And then we even have an additional experience section, because sometimes you want to add in your volunteering. Maybe you did something significant there, or you have some unrelated work experience that you think is important to list as well. So these clean sections, 1-inch margins on either side, that white space effect, that simplification. You will know you've done your resume correctly if a recruiter calls you and says, oh, hey, Gary, wanted to talk to you, saw your resume, looks like you might be a fit, but I needed more information. Ding, 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 ding. This is marketing teaser copy. You only want to give them enough to make them want to call you. And if they ever complain to you that you should put more on your resume, smile and nod and say thank you, and don't change a darn thing, because it's the lack of overkill of information that got you the phone call. And that is a really important thing for people to understand. Recruiters want more info because they want to be able to screen you out without talking to you. They're in a hurry. So we've got to create a document that's going to force them to want to schedule a time to meet with you. And then that's when you're going to be able to really shine. All right. Hopefully that made sense to everybody. In the interest of time, I'm going to show you now how we take a format like this resume and use this info, because once you've figured this information out, updating your LinkedIn profile is a breeze. And it's really important these days that you have your LinkedIn profile properly updated. So we are going to take a look at LinkedIn best tips here. There we go. So with LinkedIn, I want you to think of it this way. It's a virtual resume. In fact, LinkedIn even has a feature where you can hit a button and it can turn your LinkedIn profile into a resume as a PDF like that. So if you were ever in a hurry getting your LinkedIn profile done, you could at least do that and have a resume to give to somebody in a pinch. It's obviously a huge networking tool, but it's also a personal branding tool. LinkedIn has over 700 million people and counting on it. It is the equivalent, and it's built very much like an internet search algorithm. So you know how you always hear about Google's search algorithm and SEO, search engine optimization? Well, LinkedIn has an algorithm because if I'm looking for people, I can't have 700 million profiles come up. They have an extremely complex algorithm, and they have a proprietary platform that recruiters pay thousands of dollars for to access to help them sort through 700 million profiles in order to find the right people. So that idea of optimizing your LinkedIn profile so that you can be found is paramount. It is just like when companies want to optimize their websites so they can be found in search. You want to be found in search. Think of yourself as a business of one, and your LinkedIn profile is your website for your business of one. You want to optimize that to be found. So obviously it shouldn't surprise you, the themes coming out here, choosing relevant keywords. Now in that resume design, I showed you those two columns. Those are your relevant keywords, the words that you know that they're going to be looking for, and it's skill set based. You know, they're told find somebody with project management, find somebody with, you know, hospitality, find somebody who's done food service. These skill sets are the ones that you need to have front and center and throughout the LinkedIn profile. So they're going to search on that. And they're also, the tool is going to look for density. So not only do you need these keywords in LinkedIn, but you're going to need them repeatedly in certain places, because it's going to look at two profiles who are in the same location. And the only way to tell if one is more relevant than the other is, does this one have more of the keyword in it than this one does? That's how the data works. So we want to optimize your profile for that density so that you show up in those searches. Next, we want to think visual, because when they land on your profile, it actually matters a lot. Doris Day, the actress, said people hear what they see. So while we don't put pictures on resumes, we do on LinkedIn. Brand or be branded. Please don't not put something on there. You actually want to put some thought into your banner and into your headshot. The one thing you want to think about is keeping the banner very simple. I've seen people go a little crazy and put all sorts of words and contact information and quotes and all this sort of stuff. That can come across a bit hokey to recruiters. And for every one that loves it, there'll be 5 that doesn't. So you want to visually focus on you and not on distracting them with a banner. Keep it simple. As you'll see in a minute, I literally use a blue banner with my company's logo. Super boring. Number 3, choosing a profile photo. Again, very, very important. You do not need a pro headshot. In fact, people are really shying away from them now. They're grabbing their smartphones, they're finding a neutral wall, good front lighting, and they're snapping a bunch of smartphone shots and then picking one from there. It's that easy, because you do want to be current. You don't want to say, well, I have a picture that I look really great in 12 years ago. That's not an accurate representation of you. And people will say, well, I don't want to put something recent because I'm worried about age discrimination. They're going to discriminate against age the moment you get it. If they're going to discriminate, they're still going to discriminate, is what I'm trying to say. So you get in the interview, they're going to discriminate there. So you really want to be who you are and put it out there and get a nice current photo. Make sure that you don't have any objects in the background that are too distracting. I mean, if it's muted, it's one thing. Make sure that it's well lit. Tons of people tend to grab a photo because they think they looked good at a wedding. So it's dark in the back and blurry, their eyes are red, or they've got the hand hanging on them because they're in the shot. You know, they're that you don't want any of that. You really want well lit, neutral, and that you're looking at the camera. A lot of people have been doing that old MySpace look where they're looking off or they're doing black and white. You want to look as approachable as possible. That's the goal. You don't have to have an over-the-top smile. You just need to look approachable. And the best way to test that is another free website I'm going to suggest you all go to. I'm not affiliated with them, just love them. Photofeeler.com. So it's PHOTOFEELER, photofeeler.com. And this website lets you upload a bunch of pictures and crowdsource which one is the right one for your LinkedIn profile. It's super cool. So a lot of times we have a hard time picking a picture of ourselves. So you can take a bunch there, and a group of people will tell you which one is the best. All right, now we're going to get into that optimization, your headline. Your headline is the most important real estate on your entire LinkedIn profile, because the algorithm that I've been talking about gives weighted value to what you put in the headline. So if you put certain key skill sets in the headline, like hospitality management, food and beverage service, and a recruiter's looking for that, it's looking at the whole profile, but if you have it in your headline, it's saying, wow, this person labeled themselves as this, so we should give them a higher ranking. So this is why you want to select keywords and then make sure that the most important keywords are actually in your headline, because it increases the chances that you get found. The one thing we never, ever, ever want to put in our headline is looking for new opportunities or currently unemployed. First of all, nobody searches on those terms. So from a search standpoint, you're not going to come up. But secondly, sadly, there are some recruiters that discriminate against the unemployed. And so if they see that in your headline, what they get is a list of, say, 50 candidates. They see their headshot and their headline. So if I'm going through and I'm saying unemployed, a lot of them are not going to click on that person. And it's terrible and it's awful, but it's the truth. They have a bias. So you don't need to bring that up in your headline. Doesn't even need to come up in conversation. You need to focus on your skill sets. Then we're going to talk about your about section. So this is another one of those scenarios where you want to be very succinct, very factual, and create a lot of white space. You're going to put a simple statement in there, a branding statement that rolls up the numbers of your experience. And I'm going to show you my own profile in a minute because I practice what I preach. And then you're going to make a list of those skill sets and you're going to put them in a list format. You'll be able to take them straight from the resume and be able to list them there for consistency. Very, very easy to do. The reason you want to do this is that recruiters will not read an epic novel in the about section, and you want to get them into scroll mode, which I'll show you in a minute. You want to get them moving the mouse so that they're going down and looking at your work history. So that's why we want a very simplified about section. And then lastly, the experience section, the easiest section of them all, because you're going to copy and paste the bullet points from your resume. Your resume and your work history on LinkedIn should be identical. And I've heard some people say, no, I was told it should be a little different. Nope. If a recruiter finds you by your resume and wants to send your LinkedIn profile to a hiring manager, they need the work experiences to be the same, and vice versa. If they found you on LinkedIn and they ask for your resume, they don't want to bait and switch. So again, no big paragraphs, 3 to 7 bullet points, the exact things that we talked about in the resume tutorial. You do the same thing here, copy and paste. Couldn't be any simpler. And then lastly, adding relevant key skill sets. So down at the bottom, there's a skills and endorsement section. Once again, this is a place where you can improve the density. So you should make sure that all the skill sets that you want to be known for and found on are listed down there. We also tend to suggest that you try to get endorsements. This can be as simple as sending out an email to a bunch of friends and saying, hey, I'm trying to increase my endorsements on LinkedIn. Will you endorse me? The reason for that is that somebody can't sit there and endorse you 20 times for one skill set. It can't be gamed, is what I'm saying. So if I see that you've got 20 endorsements for a skill set, I know that 20 people had to come to your profile and endorse you for that. So that says to me, wow, you're networked and people were willing to endorse you. So it does add some weight. But again, its biggest effect is that 20 endorsements, if I'm looking at 2 profiles and they're identical, but one has 20 endorsements for hospitality and one has 2, whose will automatically rank higher in the search result? The one with the endorsements. So you should get all your skills in that section and then have a long-term goal of starting to work towards getting more endorsements for those skill sets. All right, so now I'm just going to show you what I mean by showing you my own LinkedIn profile. So you can see here, I have a headshot, right, taken with a smartphone, and I just use my Work It Daily banner. If you just use a neutral backdrop, that's fine too. Maybe a skyline is also very popular of where you want to work. You know, it's Boston city skyline, something like that. Or if you're in hospitality, maybe a picture regarding hospitality would be fine. Just try to make sure that it's not taking away from you. Notice here in the headline, I'm using the vertical line dividers, and I've chosen the key skill sets that I most want to be found on. This is a really clean way to list your key skill sets. And when it comes up in a recruiter search, you see the headshot and that. When people write these really long sentences, they use a bunch of text that is not searched on, and it's very hard to read. This is super simple to read. The about section. Here's what I meant about keeping it simple. I literally have 3 sets of numbers. How many years of experience I have in my area of expertise, how large teams I've managed, and the size of the budgets that I've managed for the companies. So they get a sense of the depth of my experience without me writing an epic novel. And I'm teasing them, just like I did in the resume, to want to go learn more about me in the work history. And then you can see in specialties, I've just given a nice long list of all the key skill sets I want to be found on. And this gives that check mark effect where they can go through and really start to say, oh, she has this and this and this and this and this. The hiring manager was asking for those things, but let's go see where she got that experience. This is what I meant about putting you into scroll mode. And then we get down here, and all I've done with the jobs is separated them out, the bullet points, since it doesn't really have actual bullet points. You can copy and paste them in if you want to. I chose not to, but I am separating them out with a space to make them very easy to read. And you can see I'm not putting epic novels in here. I've only put in a couple of bullet points for each one. If I put too much in here, it will not get read, and I'm throwing off that density factor. I just want those number-driven bullet points from my resume for consistency and validation. And then at the bottom, you'll see I have volunteer experience. You can start to add in all of that additional, but we have the endorsements. So the endorsements will be able to show them the amount that I have. And you can see I've added a ton over the years so that I can be found on multiple things. All right. So I am going to stop there and say, how is this doing? Is this making sense to everyone? What I wanted to do is leave a good 10 minutes or so for questions about this in terms of resume and LinkedIn. But hopefully I've at least given you that 30,000 foot view of the simplification that you want to put both of these tools through so that you can actually stand out, which seems pretty counterintuitive. But I can tell you right now, we surveyed recruiters, 73% of recruiters chose our resume format over all other formats. So we know, and our members use our LinkedIn process to optimize their profiles and see a massive increase in search results and views once they follow this keyword optimization. So to back that up with fact, I encourage you to go over to Work It Daily and check it out, because we definitely do a lot of this and we know that it works. All right, I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions.
I was checking out the chat. You did answer the question about open to work on LinkedIn. So that was great. I've always wanted to know that as well.
Yeah, just add on to that. So there's this green thing that they just started during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Turn on open to work. There is absolutely no proof that it helps you get a job.
Okay.
A lot of people think that it makes you stand out. First of all, it tells recruiters that you don't have a job. So all of those recruiters that are biased won't even look at your profile. So you really want to be careful with that thing, because it doesn't, it doesn't put you higher in the algorithm, nothing. And so people have been asking us about that. And we do a lot of work with LinkedIn, and I'm like, I cannot endorse that. That is not necessarily helping people. So just be careful of it. If you're using it and you're not seeing results, take it off.
I have a question, JT. I've noticed a trend on LinkedIn, which is confusing me, which is like, if I post something a little more personal, so I recently posted like a photo of me training at the New York Hilton 20 years ago. I mean, it got way more traction and attention than if I post something about like a software feature that I think is really cool or something sort of more granular.
Yeah.
What are the boundaries in terms of personal stuff on LinkedIn, and has that changed, especially during COVID and with everybody blending work from home?
Yes. So LinkedIn wants you to be in their feed all the time. They figured out that they're the most unsexy of the social media platforms. They have the least engagement. People don't come in and use them all day long like they do other social profiles. So what they've done is switched up the algorithm to reward you for certain types of content. And the algorithm can pick up, are you trying to market something, or are you doing something with engagement? So when you post that personal stuff, what happens is the people that follow you or connected with you see it. If they like it or comment, the algorithm is picking that up and it'll push it out to more people. So what's happening there, Jess, is just we naturally engage more with content that connects us. Yeah. So, hearing about that latest tool isn't nearly as emotional of a connection as you telling the story about 20 years ago before you had that tool, right? So storytelling is key. It does very, very well on LinkedIn. And my advice is to get more personal like that. Tell the stories about, how you got into the business, why you love it, things that you really believe in. And, then you can link to articles and videos and things to supplement that, but try to avoid any kind of direct pitching or just, hey, check out this tool, because it just won't traction.
Okay, and one of the chat members, Leslie, is asking if there's any specific suggestions for upcoming college seniors looking for jobs. I know you are a lot of
Oh,
experience.
yes, absolutely. So I think the best thing you can do if you're a college senior is to create a bucket list. We call it the interview bucket list. And it should be a list of 20. If you can get 50, great, but at least 20 companies you'd love to work for. And what you want to do is sit down and ask yourself, what is it about this company that intrinsically motivates me to want to work there? So you have to tell me, not that you heard they're a great place to work, they've got great benefits, they're good to their employees. They already know that. That's what you want from them. What they want to hear is why you love what they do. Is it their approach to hospitality? Is it their approach to food and beverage? Is it their, the way they've handled themselves through COVID? Whatever it is, you've got to think about that connection. Because what you lack in experience, they know you don't have experience. What you lack in experience, you need to make up for in intrinsic motivation. So that connection story becomes paramount for you. When you tell that connection story, it's a game changer. And I'll give you a quick story on that. We had a college senior last year. He wanted to get into recruiting, no formal experience other than a short internship, but he was going to school for it. And he wanted to relocate. He wanted to find a company that would let him relocate and hire him. So he found a job where he wanted to be, and it required 5 years of recruiting experience, but he loved this company. So we worked with him on his connection story. He wrote it, he applied online, and then he found several of the recruiters and hiring managers at the company in that area, asked them to connect on LinkedIn, and said, we haven't met, but I love your company, and I would love to share a story about why I'm so passionate about what you do, right? I'm hinting at the connection story. The ones that accepted, he sent off the connection story. Thank you so much. Here's the story. I've applied to your XYZ job recently. Here's my story. Doesn't need to attach a resume because he's got a LinkedIn profile attached to it, right? Already. He got the job. He beat out people with 5 to 10 years of experience because they loved his passion for the company and the work. And they said, no bad habits. We can train him. Mm-hmm. So a lot of college seniors have a huge competitive advantage right now. There's going to be a ton of entry-level jobs coming up out of this. There's going to be so much innovation, but they're going to need to hear your intrinsic motivation. And hopefully that made sense. And go get them.
Hi, good morning. This is Melissa. Quick question. You had mentioned on your LinkedIn profile not to include currently unemployed or looking for new opportunities, which I don't have that. However, I did update my most recent job. I was laid off at the end of the year. So I did update it to ending December 2020, which obviously, reflects that I am unemployed, even though I don't have those words.
Yes.
So could that be a deterrent?
Not at all, Melissa. And I'm so glad you updated it. It would be way worse if you didn't, and then they called you and found out you weren't working anymore. Here's the thing. You know how LinkedIn always says, hey, you don't have an active job right now, post it? That's just the technology trying to remind you. Somewhere out in the universe, people got it in their heads that if I don't have an active job, it's hurting me in getting in the search results. Not true. That would be illegal. LinkedIn would be in a lot of trouble if they did that. So you're still showing in search results. And if a recruiter loves what they see in your headline and your about section, and they get down there and they say, oh, December 2020, you know what they're going to think? COVID, 100% COVID. Now, if it's February 2022 and we don't see something, then they're going to start to wonder. It's usually in a good economy. If somebody hasn't worked for 6 months, we start to want to ask clarification questions. Why? In this case, not at all. Everyone understands what's going on right now. So you don't need to play up that you're not employed. You can just literally say in the bullet point, job ended due to COVID, if you really feel the need to explain that. But they understand that, and you're not being penalized. It's way worse when you leave it current and then they call you and they find out you're not working, then it looks like you lied.
Okay, thank you.
I'm wondering if you could share just some resources or thoughts on when you talk about that connection story and cover letters, because I feel like I've come up with this like generic cover letter because I just cannot write a cover letter for every single job that I'm looking at.
Totally understand, Avery. I totally understand. So a couple of resources. If you go to our website, workitdaily.com,
okay,
we have a bunch of free resources, and one is on this cover letter. If you want to opt in for that. The other thing I'll tell you right now, if you all go to Google and search disruptive cover letter Work It Daily or disruptive cover letter YouTube, you will find my video tutorial on how to do it. So I would start with the free resources. I never sell people on joining us, but you just start there, get the free resource, watch the YouTube video first, right? Go there. At that point, if you want help, definitely come over. We have an entire class on it. And we have something called a DIY subscription. It's $9.99 a month, and it gives you access to every single one of our trainings and all of our templates. And they're all in one spot for you to follow. So if you're the kind of person that's like, I don't want to have to bookmark everything, I just want to go in, get it done, we're your place. Workaday is your place. But start with the free YouTube video. The light bulb will go off. I can already tell that you get it, and you'll see the examples and go, I get it now.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
See, I'm looking through the chat. Anybody else have any questions?
Was this helpful, folks?
Yes.
Helpful?
Incredibly helpful. Thank
Absolutely
you.
helpful. Yep.
I'm telling you, you got this. There is so much opportunity out there. There's a lot of hidden jobs right now that companies aren't posting publicly. Make your bucket list. It's 2022, 2021, 2020 is behind us. I know, I'm already a year ahead. The future's bright and companies are hiring, but they're not posting jobs publicly because they don't want to get 8,000 applications. So make your bucket list. Whoever you want to work for, make the list and start networking, but have that resume and that LinkedIn profile ready, because you're going to be shocked. You're going to get that, actually, we're hiring for a position, but we've only posted it internally. Why don't you send me your stuff? It's happening every single day. So you know what? Choose who you want to work for next. Go make it happen. It's happening every day. You have more choice than you think.
Best.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I am going to bounce. I was telling Jess, I have to go bounce. I'm interviewing Chris Gronkowski, Rob's brother, right before he heads off to the Super Bowl today to discuss his own story about life after leaving the NFL. He was a pro NFL player, and now he started his own company. So I'm running over there on LinkedIn. So if you all want to come hang out with me on LinkedIn, we're doing a live broadcast. You'll just go to my profile. Otherwise, feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. Just send me a note and say you saw me here, so I know to say yes. And if you need anything, let me know. Jess, if there's follow-up resources, I can pull them together and send them out for you all. But thanks for letting me talk about this. You probably figured out I nerd out on this stuff. I love it. And I love hearing that, people are taking control of their careers. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all.
Thanks so much, JT. Thank you. Thanks
all right,
everybody for joining.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.